The United States is the only country in the world that still allows government-funded medical experiments on chimpanzees. Supporters of the practice say medical tests involving chimps have helped to save millions of lives worldwide. Animal welfare activists argue that subjecting chimpanzees to painful and often lethal experiments is cruel and inhumane. Dr. Hope Ferdowsian is Director of Research Policy at the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, or PCRM, a nonprofit organization that promotes preventive medicine.
Chimpanzees have been used for HIV research, for hepatitis research. As a result, they're darted to put them down so that they can be subjected to all sorts of harmful, invasive procedures.
Besides its ethical objections, the PCRM argues that the use of chimpanzees in the lab is an ineffective way to advance medical research. Elizabeth Kucinich, wife of U.S. Congressman Dennis Kucinich, is a longtime animal welfare advocate. She is also Director of Public Affairs for the Physicians Committee.
Science has evolved since the 1920s when primates were first used for experimentation.
Dr. Ferdowsian says there are alternatives to the use of chimpanzees in research.
For example, in HIV research, we've learned a lot from human epidemiological studies and clinical trials, ethically conducted clinical trials. We've also learned a lot about the virus from mathematical and computer modeling. For hepatitis C vaccine, we're learning a lot from in vitro or cell-based methods.
Both Kucinich and Dr. Ferdowsian campaigned recently on behalf of newly introduced legislation in the U.S. Congress that would eventually ban invasive experiments on chimpanzees. But not everyone is happy with the legislation. John Vandenberg is director of the Southwest National Primate Research Center in San Antonio, Texas. He says the use of chimpanzees in biomedical research is essential.
There are no other animals that can be infected with hepatitis C virus, hepatitis B virus, or HIV.
And the research that's been conducted on chimpanzees so far, says Vandenberg, has already benefited much of the world's population.
350 million human beings in the world are infected with hepatitis B virus. 300 million people in the world are infected with hepatitis C virus. That's almost a tenth of the world's population.
When it comes to the question of ethics, Dr. Vandenberg says he and his colleagues go out of their way to use lower forms of animals before experimenting on chimpanzees.
When the research progresses to a stage where the information coming from mice and rats is not sufficient, we may move up to using monkeys. And when monkeys can't give us the answers we need, only then do we move to the chimpanzee.
Dr. Vandenberg is also quick to defend his Texas research facility. He says that the animals in his primate research center receive better care than most people in the world.
They live in social groups. They live in indoor-outdoor enclosures. They have heating in the winter. They have air conditioning in the summer. Our chimpanzees even have televisions.
But the fact remains that chimpanzees used in medical research may suffer or die. And to world-famous primate expert Jane Goodall, that is simply unacceptable.
We need to recognize at the outset that what we do to animals, from their perspective certainly, and probably from ours, is morally wrong and unacceptable.
The Great Ape Protection Act is currently making its way through the U.S. Congress, with more than 140 co-sponsors in the House of Representatives. Julie Taboh, VOA News, Washington.